Welcome to the Accomplish Impact podcast, where we explore what it truly means to accomplish in life with a focus on purpose-driven leadership. We'll be releasing new episodes every other Tuesday at 6 a.m, so be sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover the aspiring journeys of leaders who are making an impact in their space. In each episode, we sit down with visionary business leaders who are not only achieving remarkable success, but also doing so with a deep sense of meaning and impact. I'm your host, Benjamin Tan, and in today's episode, we're joined by Koh Tat Seng, a prominent figure in the finance space. Tat Seng has over 30 years of experience in corporate finance, IPOs, mergers and acquisitions, and also debt and equity fundraising. He's now currently the chairman of Flexiroam. Welcome, Tat Seng, to the show. So glad to have you here.
Hey, Ben. Yeah, I think thanks for having me.
No worries. Yeah, so maybe for those of the audience who are not so familiar with you, maybe you can give a brief intro about yourself.
Yeah, I started off being an auditor in an accounting firm after graduating with a degree in accounting. Then I went into investment banking world. That's where I spent a fair bit of my time, and that's where my experience from in IPOs, mergers and acquisitions, and fundraisings came from. So that season of my life was very interesting because I helped a lot of company raise funds, restructure the company, and I have a chance to know a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners. Midway through, I decided to seek a career change, and I then went on to the other side of the fence, the other side of the equation, where I'm no longer in the investment banking world, but I'm in a company helping them from the inside. So I spent a couple of many years actually in companies that are involved in manufacturing, and I therefore had a chance to look at their finances from the inside as well as looking at their operations. So that journey itself gave me a holistic perspective from an advisory standpoint, then towards the later part of my life from a business standpoint, looking from inside, and I thought that was really helpful and very holistic for me in understanding operations and finance.
So yeah, Tat Seng, you've got an amazing amount of experience from both sides of the fence, both in banks and also on the side of businesses. And today, actually, we're going to be talking about financial resilience and what it means for companies to, and also businesses, whether small or big businesses, to keep financially resilient throughout the different seasons in the business, right? But what do you think, based on your extensive experience, is the key principles for success when it comes to financial resilience for companies?
Yeah. When you talk about resilience, right, to me, over the years of being in companies and even in the banks, resilience, to me, it is really about being able to withstand the financial challenges as well as to then overcome those challenges. Right. So one of the things that I learned in terms of being financially resilient is being able to really understand the business, understand the financial fundamentals of running a company. The other thing that is also very important is to ask this particular question about where is your current financial position, to be able to then answer your question about financial resilience. For example, one of the key things that one have to ask about the fundamental of finance is the understanding of profit and cash flow. Every business, their main motive is to make money, right? Make profit, make a lot of money. In that context, therefore, if you run a business but you don't make profit, then over a period of time you will have to face challenges, and you need to talk about whether you can sustain your business or not. But there's this one particular question that a lot of people ask, is that which is more important, cash flow or profit?
True.
Right? Cash flow or profit? This particular question was actually asked a lot more, especially during COVID. during COVID time, when the question then is that whether you're a profitable business or you are not a profitable business, it's about how long is your runway, how deep is your pocket, how much cash do you have in the bank, because everything is shut.
Yeah.
Your business do not generate any business at that particular point in time. At that point in time, cash is really king. So yeah, the financial resilience, understanding the differentiation between profit, making money, as well as managing cash flow is therefore important. Now, I think the second part, what I wanted to share is the fact that when we look into the cash flow and profit position, it can be analyzed into 4 quadrants. This is where we learn in Accomplish, right?
Yeah.
The 4 quadrant analysis. The first quadrant is when your company is making profit and you have positive cash flow, right? That actually is the best position to be in, because it's really about how far further you can go, how high you can fly, because you are making money and you are generating cash flow. So you are in a good position. The CFO will love this position.
Yeah.
The other position is that you're making money, you are profitable, but your cash flow is negative. Now, that is also very interesting, right? One has to really understand why the company is in that position. We're talking about financial resilience, so we need to understand this fundamental. So when your cash flow is negative, what is the reason? Is it because you have not been able to collect your debt?
Yeah.
People are owing you money, you're making money, there's profit in the book, but you maybe collection is a bit weak. It could be due to various reasons that actually could have impacted your position to be as such. So the other position, which is a position where your profit is actually negative, so that means you're not making money in paper, but your cash flow is positive. Now, that is still a favorable position to be in.
Yeah.
But then how long are you going to be lasting, right? Because you are not making money, although you still have cash flow positive. It could be due to perhaps the fact that you sold your property, your car, and that's why you have a positive cash flow. Or perhaps it is an accounting thing, you have depreciation, and therefore your profit is lower. Or you could have accrued expenses and you defer your payment to your supplier.
Yeah.
And you too then have cash flow positive, but actually you're not making money in business. The worst quadrant to be in, the worst position to be in, is when your profit is negative and your cash flow is negative. And that is perhaps a situation where we talk about how long will you last?
Yeah.
How long can your business hang around without having to go through a stop or go decision? So I think that kind of gives you the perspective that understanding the business, when you have a financial report, you have the analysis, it helps the business owner to really understand the situation. You need to ask this hard question. What position are you in? And we can then address a lot of issues with regards to financial planning and being resilient to be able to overcome financial challenges.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think a lot of financial planning really boils down to cash flow and profit. I think we can see a lot of businesses nowadays with, like, especially with all the tech startups, right? So many cash flow strong businesses, but we're not sure whether the model is profitable, right? So there are a lot of businesses burning cash. They got plenty of cash to burn, but not really having that profit or not really having that long-term sustainability.
I mean, the pre-COVID was an era where a lot of startup had a great time, because raising funds was relatively easy. A lot of investors were then very keen to invest on this startup, and they were all looking for growth and not particularly looking at profitability. So they were just burning cash, And yeah, I think in the post-COVID era, it has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
It's no longer that easy for startup, especially the tech businesses to go out there and raise easy money.
Yeah. I think then talking about external funding, right? When do you think is the right time for businesses to get that funding, and how do businesses go around getting funding?
Wow, that's a very wide question. I shared with you about the four quadrant. Right?
Yeah.
The four quadrant can be the guiding principle in that decision making. Now, for example, if you are positive cash flow, and if you are also positive profit, I mean you are generating profit, that means your business is doing well. And people in that position have a question where, do I grow further my business? If I grow further my business, do I have enough funds in my company to support that growth?
Yeah.
Now, when you are in that kind of situation, everybody wants to lend money to you.
Correct.
It's easy for you to knock at the doors of banks or even shareholders or new investors. They would be more than willing, at the right valuation, extend support to you. Now, so that means to say that when you decide when and best to talk about fundraising, it all depends, right? Whereas the other company who is negative cash flow and no profit, that means his runway is really short.
Yeah.
That company is desperate, will be desperate. Now, so the question then is that I need the money yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah, in that situation, right? Because you won't be able to sustain now. And when you're in that position, it's very difficult for you to go out there and ask for to go to the bank and ask for money, and as well as even your shareholders may not even support you.
Yeah.
So it all boils down to the fact that one question is that is your business viable? Do you have a hope in the business? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? If you put more money in there, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? And can you support your case? If you do, perhaps somebody may want to invest in you. But when we have negative cash flow, it is always very, very difficult to get funding from from investors or from the banks.
Yeah.
I hope that answer your question.
Yeah.
A bit. Yeah.
I think that's so important to note that. Yeah, you also need to look at. I think it boils down to your own personal circumstances. Like each business is very different, right? Whether you are even though you're a cash flow positive business, you might still need additional funding for that growth.
Yeah. When you look at the nature of business, for example, if you have a durian orchard, you have to plant the seedlings. You buy the land, you plant. And then you have to wait for don't know how many years before you can harvest and before you can sell and have your cash flow. So in that kind of business, for the first few years, you will not have any inflow of cash.
Yeah,
it's all about investing, right? And if you plan for it, then you know the expectation of the cycle of your business and the cash flow, and therefore it all really depends on the type of business. Also depends on the position that I talk about in the four quadrants. If you are really desperate, then you have no choice. You have to go and back and find the cash to support your business.
Yeah. I think you've seen a lot of businesses look for funding, right? Because you've, like you mentioned, you're on both sides. You've been on the banking side, giving people loans, and also on the side of businesses, helping those businesses look for loans and also look for additional round of funding. And what do you see is the most common mistake that businesses have made when they are seeking that funding?
In a lot of companies would really want to be able to knock at doors of banks or investors and say, hey, look, this is my business and just give me the money. But the reality, it is not as simple as that, right? Therefore, being able to really articulate your business proposition clearly to whoever that you talk to, and obviously, I think having a good track record is also very important. I suppose the other thing is perhaps who is behind the company.
Yeah.
If the person has good financial standing, perhaps the bank may also extend credits to the company. So it all depends. And I suppose mistake is when company are not prepared to articulate their case well. Otherwise, it could be they could be in a better position if they could articulate their case well to the potential to the lender, to the investors.
Yeah, but I think what about businesses that say like you say in your quadrant maybe are not so they don't look so feasible on paper, right? Because they have got negative cash flow and right now they've got no profit. Like for example, a durian farm that you talked about, right? It looks like a bad business on paper because for 10, 15 years you've got zero cash flow, you're not making a profit. How then do businesses like those tell or go to banks and say that, okay, I've still got some sort of case there?
Yeah, I've had a personal experience in this area. So immediately after I left the investment banking world, I went to join a company that is in the manufacturing of food ingredient, right? And they are technically a startup because the commercialization is still very early stage. Product maturity is still very early. And we had a lot of challenges in terms of coming up with a great product. We have challenges with regards to market, limited funding. What we did was to just focus. We had so many potential in the company with 70 over potential products. But what we did was to just focus on one, come out with a financial plan, come out with a business model, and did a lot of pitching to various investors in and out of Malaysia, in Singapore and Hong Kong, even to UK. And finally, we managed to land on investors that are very interested in food ingredient, and they understood what we were trying to do, although we are early stage, and they gave us seed money. It's not small. It's about 60 million then ringgit. And that was our lifeline. And then we were able to use that money to turn around and build a decently big company. Yeah. So in that sense, to answer your question, when I joined the company, I thought, oh man, from a banker to a company that are in trouble, and financially we were really in red, and we were in negative cash flow.
Yeah.
No profit.
Yeah.
Fourth quadrant. And I had a shock in my life because I've never been in that position in my life. And I was actually prepared for the worst. But I'm glad that I stick on and went through that journey with the company. There's a lot of learning. It also gives me the experience and confidence that even though a worst case scenario, if you plan it well, timing is also good. And we are able to, you may be able to raise decent money from people who believe in your story.
Yeah. So definitely quite a shock for you, right? Because you were on the banking side giving out money, and if this probably came across the table, you probably wouldn't have given money to this company, right?
Yeah, I think I always say, right, when I was in the bank, we extend loan to companies. But on this side of the fence, people were chasing me for payment. There was an engineering company, and the moment he knew I came in as a CFO, I called me and said, hey, Tat Seng, your company has owed me $1 million over ringgit, and for quite a number of years. When are you going to pay us? Yeah, that was a real shock to me.
Yeah.
Never been in a situation like that before.
Yeah, but I guess having liabilities is always part of a business, right? But I think also, as we talk about raising funding also, and also about liabilities, how do you think businesses should balance both? Because in order to grow, you have to get funding, like you say, from your seed investors in your experience, or whether it's from a bank. How do you balance having liabilities but also ensuring that you don't overtake those liabilities and still have growth?
Yeah. So fundamental in fundraising, you always have these two spectrum, right? Which we call the equity and debt. It's the other end
Yeah.
of the spectrum. So equity is all about shareholders putting money in to fund the business, and the other extent is debt. So basically, you take other people's money from banks or borrowings to finance what you want to do. And of course, then in between there, you have the hybrid,
Yeah.
right? Hybrid products in between debt and equity. I suppose in my experience over the years, a debt element is always inevitable in funding businesses, unless you yourself has a lot of money to put in the company.
Yeah.
And risk that money, right? Otherwise, most businesses would go for a balance of debt and equity. And the bigger the business, the bigger the projects, that is actually inevitable. And therefore, the question that you had is how do one balance that? And effectively, I think even for banks, when they look into even wanting to give you funding, they will also look at your financial strength, as well as they want to make sure that you two are committed to the business and the project. They too want to see that you also put some equity in, a decent size of equity before they extend lending to you. So it is never easy. It's never easy. The bigger the project, the bigger the funding needs, and the bigger the potential liability, and therefore it's all about managing the business and managing the risks.
Yeah, thanks, Tat Seng. I think it's so important for businesses to also balance it, because at the end of the day, you have to be prudent in managing your finance, right? I think it boils down to how the business operates and how they want to grow also. Yeah, but I think it's definitely unavoidable, and businesses just have to be prudent when making that decision. I think talking then about decision making, maybe from your experience, what practical steps or principles do you keep when making your financial planning and making decisions when it comes to finances?
Yeah, I suppose, when it comes to business, there is no one one formula that fits all, right? So prudent, finance person, we always talk about prudent management, meaning to say that you will want to make sure that you manage your finances well. And your question with regards to balance between debt and equity in that sense, then there is always this rules that you do not over leverage, right? And you don't want to be gearing up too much unless you know that you will be able to generate profit and generate cash to repay off. So being prudent is really very, very important, while also making sure that you do not become too prudent without taking risk, right? Business is also about taking risks. So having that balance requires experience, requires judgment along the way.
And I think in Accomplish, we always learn about this principle called being loyal to the process, right? Maybe you can share a situation in your career where you've applied this principle and it's helped you guide the company towards financial resilience.
Yeah, I think in business, loyal to process to me means there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to success. Every success comes with the need to go through perhaps the cycle of challenges in innovation, in business processes, and being just able to hire good people, right, to manage the company. So loyal to a process to me is the ability to really be patient in trying to achieve success. That means to say that you don't try to shortcut. I've shared earlier about startup in the early days, when a lot of the younger generations, they find it so easy to raise money, and that was success to them. but they have not really built the business.
Yeah.
To them, it's about raising money, and they deem that a success. And a lot of them fail along the way, right? And so that is where I thought, loyal to process. I've taught me lessons when I went into those companies, and it was not easy. Life was not a
Yeah.
bed of roses. There's a lot of hurdles to cross, and a lot of tough decision to make, and being prudent, being able to really come together as a team. And you don't work alone. There's a lot of discussions with the management to make tough decisions. And the other important thing, obviously, is character of people. If you hire wrong people, you have a lot
Yep.
of challenges, a lot of headache. And
Sure.
I have gone through that. I'm still going through that now. But that's part and parcel of building and running a business.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Like nowadays, people always say, "Oh, I've raised so much seed money, and it's so good for my business, right?" But I think at the end of the day, it's always about building a sustainable business, right? And a business that respects the process. And
Yep.
unfortunately, the process is long, right? You've had so much experience in your 30 years, and you can see that what sustainable businesses take 10, 20 years to really.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we need to really look into, that business, especially today, you really need to be dynamic. You need to be agile,
Yeah.
right? One of the things really about business that needs to be resilient, not just financially, they need to be able to adapt to changes very quickly, and also to take on new opportunities that comes, right? If not, then perhaps over a period of time, they may face challenges, including financial challenges along the way.
Yeah.
We've seen many companies who have been around for a while, and because they could not change in time, or they could not take on new opportunities as they come along, that became a problem for them.
Yeah, I think you talk so much about the rapidly changing environment, especially with things like COVID, things like the new US President Donald Trump, right? I think there's so many changes happening in the market. What do you think are some practical steps that businesses can take to ensure that they stay financially resilient, even in times of turmoil, in times of changes, and times of rapid evolution of the space?
Yeah, especially financial resilience. So let's talk about cash flow, right?
Yeah.
Because we talk about financial resilience means you are able to withstand and to recover from the challenges. So let's talk about cash flow. So cash flow, there are two types. One is organic. Organic cash flow, which means to say that you're able to generate cash from your own business to support and finance your day-to-day business activities. When you have that cash flow positive, then you're great. But if not, then you will eat into your capital, right? The other cash flow that is important to understand is the non-organic cash flow, I call it, meaning not from your operations.
Yeah.
It can come from your shareholders, put the money in. It can come from bank borrowings. It can come from a sale of a land, sale of assets that you have in a company to fund, or sale of a business to some company, right? Or it could be a mergers and acquisition, when you acquire another company with a lot of cash through share exchange. So those kind of method provides a company the opportunity to really look into their ability to be financially resilient over a period of time. Some company have the options to transform themselves by being able to do, especially the non-organic way of fundraising, and that helps them a lot. So in my kind of years of experience, that's where I have been, because I give that kind of services to my client by helping them to raise funds through IPOs, through restructuring, and that has been one part of the equation, and has been able to help some companies who face challenges and difficulties to be able to fund and grow their business and became very successful.
Yeah, I think drawing on from your experience, what was the most difficult decision that you had to make when it comes to whether you're a CFO or whether you're a director somewhere that you had to make, and how did it help the business grow?
Let me think now. Let me share this, right? When I was a CFO, my CEO actually asked me to do this dirty job of going to China to remove or fire our Chinese partner. And because the Chinese partner made very difficult decision for us that caused us to be in financial difficulties. Removing people, going there to implement that was not easy because in another country, and that was challenging. Removing top level people, but it is needed. It is important.
Yeah.
The impact was the fact that we were better in our managing of our risk in China at that point in time. Yeah, because this partner of ours were very in a way difficult in his decision has caused us a lot of financial losses. So we need to put a stop to that.
Yeah.
So removing the person was the best decision, the good decision that we have to make that results in positive impact long term to the company.
Yeah, I think definitely that's not an easy decision to make, right? And not easy for you. And I think talking especially about businesses who are struggling, how do they balance and make the decision whether they should cut the losses? Like in your case, you cut these partners or continue braving on.
Wow, that's a really tough decision, right? I'm glad we talk about the 4 quadrant. The 4 quadrant seems to give us a guidance, right, over this particular decision making to go carry on the business or to close the business. Now, if you are in that 4th quadrant where your business is not profitable and your cash flow is also negative, I suppose the question that we all will then have to ask is that why? Why is the company in that position? And obviously, if it is a situation where it is difficult to justify, then perhaps one has to take a very hard decision. I think it is never easy. The key question, obviously, is that perhaps one should ask the question: does the business have light at the end of the tunnel? And hope or not. If you are the owner, if you are the business owner, if you believe so, then perhaps you can argue and have confidence on putting more money in there. But whether or not somebody else will support you is a separate equation altogether, right? It is tough, right? It is tough. Even the business is positive with cash flow and profitability is always easy. But when you are in that 4th quadrant, negative cash flow, negative profitability, having to make that decision. I've been in there, in that company I talked to you about, negative cash flow, negative profit, but yet we managed to sell the story to investors, raise the money, raise kind of seed money, big sum to help us. And then we went IPO and we took that IPO money of almost $50 million at that point in time and built a factory in China, big one, right? And that was the beginning of a growth spurt for us. Yeah. So in that sense, to make a decision whether to go or to close, it all depends on whether you see the company has a potential to grow further, and also the ability to raise funds.
I think the personal conviction is so important, because if you can't even believe that your business can survive, then investors probably wouldn't care about it. Yeah.
I think a lot of business owner will find it really hard to close, especially if the business has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
For example, I think during COVID, it was very difficult for a lot of people because that season of pandemic really just forced them to shut, and they could not survive. Right? Could not survive. So it's very difficult. business at that point in time, some of them still do have potential, but that period forced them to really rethink, and some took a very hard decision to not carrying on with the business and just close the business down.
Yeah, so like talk about business leaders or business owners who didn't want to let go because they've been holding on to the business for so long and they are not really sure if it's time to cut that loss or continue fighting on. How do you think that these people should approach the business? How do you think they should make that decision? Because it's definitely not an easy decision to make, and you're easily so clouded by your own selfish desire to, uphold my legacy or uphold my story.
One of the it's a very difficult decision to make, right? Obviously, we won't have to look at the financial position as well as the prospect of the business. But I think it's also equally important is to surround yourself with like-minded community, people who you could talk to. And that's where I think accomplished community comes in really handy. A lot of us went through that during especially the pandemic season, and being surrounded by like-minded people whom we can talk to and seek advice from has been really helpful and encouraging, and it helps us to make good decision with regards to whether a go or no go.
Yeah, I think it's also important that these are people that you trust that have your best interest in mind, because I think especially when we talk about finances, especially the touchy subject with other people, because it's something that's confidential. And I think it's so important to have people who have your back, a community that has your back and is able to help you see past your cloudy vision and just tell you, okay, that maybe you need to go back. Maybe there's something that needs to be looked at or something like that.
I think it is so important because I remember very well in our circle, a few of us had similar challenges. That means we all had cash flow problem. We all went through a period of having to make that decision to close or to carry on. Then there is another business owner in our group. During that period, he thrived because he was doing digital marketing, everything online sales. So his business just shot up, right? The opposite of what we face. So it's quite interesting in a sense we were able to really understand what's happening in the market, and that we are not the only one who had a similar problem. So we then encourage one another. We learn from each other. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And today, I think all of us are still, still hanging around, and business still ongoing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tat Seng, for that. I think such amazing stories that you've told us. And I think before we close, maybe you could share with us, if you could condense all your 30 years of experience in the finance industry into one principle for long-term financial resilience, what would that be?
I think success to me should not be entirely financial gain, financial profit.
Yeah, that's so counterintuitive, right? Because we're talking about
financial resilience. But to me, in my years of working 30 over years, success to me is not entirely about financial profit and financial gain. We also should include social impact, moral impact, and I think to me, a big chunk of my life, I think the spiritual impact or spiritual aspect has been very significant to me, and therefore for a long term success beyond financial is really about how we impact our employees, how we impact our suppliers, our shareholders. The whole gambit of things. And I think for me personally, God is so important to me, and therefore bringing light into this dark world of workplace and business, I suppose is so important.
So thank you so much, Tat Seng, for your wonderful sharing, amazing stories and a lot of experience that we can really draw from. So I think this is a wrap. Thank you so much for being part of this show.
Thank you, Ben, for having interviewed me.
Thank you so much for listening to yet another episode of The Accomplish Podcast. We release episodes bi-weekly on Tuesdays at 6 a.m. If you haven't already, we encourage you to subscribe. We'll be on Spotify as well as on YouTube. You can also follow our social media at accomplish.asia on Instagram and TikTok, where we post snippets of this podcast. If you want to find out more about the Accomplish community and how you can be a part of it, drop us a DM on our socials or email us at hello@accomplish.asia. We'll see you at the next one.